I still remember the sound of the glass shattering on the kitchen floor, sharp and cold, like it never left my ears. The smell of coffee spread across the tiles, seeping into every crack, and I stood frozen, phone trembling in my hand like it, too, had sensed something was terribly wrong. Penelope, he collapsed in the meeting room. We're taking him to St. Mary's. Andrea's voice, my husband's assistant, was broken between sobs. It was 12 minutes past 10 that morning, a bitter, cold March morning, though I couldn't feel a thing. All I knew was I had to get to the hospital. Nothing else mattered. My husband, Andrew, had just turned 39. That very morning, he baked strawberry muffins for our daughter and kissed both of us on the forehead before driving off to work. I even joked, telling him not to forget the almond milk from the store. Who could have guessed that would be the last thing we'd say to each other? I drove like my life was on the line. As I passed each streetlight, I prayed with a desperation I hadn't known before. I bargained with God, offering forgiveness, promising change, vowing to do anything. Just don't take Andrew away from us. But when I arrived, the praying didn't matter anymore. 2 minutes past 11. We did everything we could. The floor beneath me felt like it gave out. The man I had loved since I was 22, the one who carried me across snowy sidewalks in Vermont on our first trip, who stayed up night after night through 3 miscarriages, was now still and cold on a hospital bed. His skin was still warm when I touched him, but his eyes, they would never open again. I don't remember how I managed to sign papers, answer doctors, or walk out of the hospital. I just recall sitting in the car, gripping my phone like it was the last thread that connected me to him. I called my mother. No one else. Just her. She had once taught me how to tie a necktie and how to stand firm when everything fell apart. The call didn't last 3 minutes, but it haunts me still. Sweetheart, today's Brooklyn's birthday. We're all having dinner. Can you call tomorrow? I said nothing. No crying, no shouting, no anger. I just hung up. Rublin, my younger sister, had just turned 30. The family threw a party at their favorite Italian restaurant, complete with live jazz and a private chef. And me? I had just lost my husband, the best friend I ever had, the father of my daughter. But none of that mattered compared to birthday candles and red wine. I thought they'd come running. I was foolish to believe that when my heart shattered, I could return to the place I once called home. That night, Ava, my 8-year-old daughter, and I curled up on the couch, wrapped in the old blanket Andrew used when watching TV. She didn't say much. She just stared at the photo on the wall, the 3 of us laughing at last year's fall festival. Mom, where's Dad? I held her close, trying to steady my voice. Daddy had to go away, sweetheart. Like, to work? I swallowed hard. No farther than that, he won't be coming back. She sat still for a moment, then crawled into my lap and screamed. A sound so raw it tore through the air. It wasn't the cry of a child denied candy or scraped from a fall. It was the sound of a heart breaking. I didn't sleep a second. I held her hand and stared at the ceiling, half expecting Andrew to appear, smelling of peppermint aftershave, with that warm hug I knew so well for 15 years. No one came. No texts, no calls. My family, the people who once taught me about love, chose dinner and dessert over my grief. From that moment, I understood that nothing would ever be the same again. Not just because Andrew was gone, but because the people I thought would stand beside me turned their backs when I needed them most. That night, something shifted. I knew I had to rise, for Ava, and for myself. I met Andrew in a place few people imagine falling in love, a university library in Wisconsin, where the scent of old pages mixed with the click of keyboards like a soundtrack to our youth. I was struggling with macroeconomics notes, and he had dozed off after a night working as a My highlighter fell and rolled across the floor. He stirred, picked it up, smiled, and said, "Looks like someone needs caffeine more than I do." His amber eyes had a calm kindness I'd never seen before. From that moment, Andrew Duvall began weaving himself into my life in ways no one else ever had. He wasn't flashy or dramatic, just quietly thoughtful. When I got sick during finals, he left ginger tea by my dorm room. When I got stuck writing my thesis, he made a mind map with colored pens like he was tutoring a kindergartner. Everyone thought a practical guy like him wouldn't match with a dreamer like me. But he was the only one who saw the chaos in my head and didn't try to fix it. Just stayed beside me through it. We married at 25, in a small church on the outskirts of Madison. No fancy gown. No grand party. Just close friends, a homemade cake, and a guitar-playing friend doing the music. My dad wasn't quite ready to call him son, but my mom hugged him like someone long lost. We moved into a modest 2-bedroom near Lake Mendota. He worked at a financial consulting firm. I taught art part-time at the community center. Our early years smelled like burnt cookies and echoed with fights about the electric bill. But they also held movie nights during thunderstorms and laughter over mismatched socks. And beneath all of it, there was one constant: unconditional love. We wanted children. Early on, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, it was something we both deeply longed for. But then, I had 2 miscarriages. One happened right in our bathroom. And even though Andrew was in the middle of a Zoom presentation, he ran in and held me like if he just held tight enough, he could keep life from slipping through our hands. We tried IVF. Every shot, every doctor's appointment felt like a suspended sentence. After every failed cycle, I wanted to give up, but he never let me fall. "If it's not this way," he said, "we'll find another. I choose you, not some version of fatherhood." And then came Ava. Not gently, not like a miracle floating in on a breeze. I was hospitalized for 3 weeks with preterm labor, swollen beyond recognition, exhausted. Andrew took 3 months off work to care for me. He learned to cook on YouTube, mixed lemon water exactly how the doctor prescribed, and every night he read stories to our unborn child, convinced Ava could hear him. When she was born at 36 weeks, underweight and needing oxygen, Andrew cried. Not quiet tears, but full sobs. He didn't care who saw. He pressed his hand against the incubator and whispered, "Daddy's here, sweetheart. I'll always be here." From then on, our life shifted into a new orbit. Steady, but messy. Ava barely slept and cried often. I struggled with postpartum depression. Andrew held me in the bathroom while I screamed because my milk wouldn't come in. No blame, no complaints, just him. The man who warmed water for my foot baths at night, who buttoned each tiny button on our daughter's church dress. He wasn't athletic, but he volunteered as a peewee soccer coach just so Ava could see her dad on the field. He learned how to braid hair from online videos and personally styled her Elsa princess look for her 7th birthday. We didn't have a big house, just a 3-bedroom place with a backyard big enough for 1 swing set. But Andrew made it the safest place for us. He installed new smoke detectors, made healthy grocery lists, labeled each medicine drawer for emergencies. Life wasn't perfect. We still fought over phone bills or how I'd leave clothes in the washer too long. But his anger never came with silence. When I was too tired to apologize, he'd always be the one to walk over first. There was only one thing he hid from me. Those chest pains he brushed off as stress. He lied, said it was just acid reflux, that the doctor wasn't worried. I blame myself for believing him, for not seeing the exhaustion in his eyes, for thinking he was too strong to fall. Now I understand why he didn't tell me. Andrew didn't want to add more worry, especially after everything we'd been through. In his mind, his job was to protect, to hold the family foundation steady. He couldn't allow himself to look weak. That's why his last morning seemed so ordinary, because he refused to show a single sign that his heart was failing. He baked, washed dishes, adjusted Ava's backpack, and kissed the top of my head. I'll stop by Whole Foods at lunch. We're out of roasted almonds. Tacos for dinner? I nodded, never knowing it'd be the last time I'd hear his voice. I never imagined telling this story in past tense. But Andrew's memory is still alive, not just in what he left behind, but in how Ava and I keep going, with love, kindness, and the belief that one person can quietly change someone's whole little world. I chose to hold Andrew's funeral at the small chapel on Maplewood, the one we used to visit when Ava attended church camp. No lavish floral arrangements or live band, just his photo on a wooden podium, his old sneakers tucked under the casket like a message that he never missed a step of his daughter's journey. The service started at 11 a.m. Ava and I arrived before 8. I wore the long black dress Andrew once said looked serious but in a good way, and Ava chose a light blue dress because Daddy said I looked like an angel in this one. More people showed up than I expected. Andrew's coworkers from the consulting firm, neighbors, old classmates, even the elderly librarian on the corner who once said he was the only patron to return books 3 days early. They came with red eyes and joined hands. Everyone had a small story about him, changing a tire in the rain, checking in after surgery with a midnight call. No one came empty-handed. Some brought food, others photo albums. No one talked about money. My family arrived nearly 30 minutes late. The chapel doors opened softly as the pastor was reading scripture, and the click of my mother's heels sliced through the stillness like a cold blade. She adjusted her shawl and motioned for Brooklyn, my sister, to follow. My father frowned, annoyed he couldn't find a close parking spot. The three of them walked in like it was a social gathering, not a farewell. I had saved the front row seats. They slid into them without a single apology, not even a glance my way. Brooklyn pulled out her phone, scrolling through texts, her metallic silver nails catching the dim yellow light. My mother dabbed at her dry eyes with a tissue and sighed, as if this whole thing was an inconvenience. I turned to Ava and took her hand, just as the pastor invited personal remembrances. I stepped up to the podium. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the edge to stay steady. In that small chapel, eyes watched me. Quietly, expectantly. I spoke about Andrew. About Sunday mornings when he made dinosaur-shaped pancakes, always forgetting the tail. About how he'd buy 2 copies of the same book just in case Ava tore one. About the way he held me tight during anxious moments and said, "As long as you breathe, I'll listen." I paused when I glanced at the front row, my dad checking his watch, my mom turning off her ringer. Brooklyn didn't even lift her head. The muffled sob behind me made me turn. It was James. Andrew's colleague? He had just finished reading a 2-page condolence letter, ending with, "I lost a teammate, but Ava lost her whole universe." That line nearly brought me to my knees. After the service, we invited close friends over for a light lunch. I tried to arrange the chairs neatly, laid out the embroidered tablecloth Andrew once tore while cutting pizza, then clumsily stitched back with green thread because we had run out of white. My family showed up last, when the table was already stained with sauce and pickles. Brooklyn didn't greet anyone. My mother strolled through the living room, glanced at the bookshelf, and asked, "Did you get a new TV?" I looked at her and said nothing. My father stood by the liquor cabinet and turned to me with an unusually serious face. "Penelope, did he have life insurance? Have you contacted the company yet?" That question sliced through the last bit of warmth in the room. I set my teacup down. "I just buried my husband this morning, and that's what you're asking me? We're just thinking ahead, so you're not caught off guard later. You still have Ava to take care of." "Not caught off guard, I'm grieving." My mother chimed in, her voice trying to sound soothing. "We're all heartbroken, honey, but the reality is you'll be receiving a large sum soon. You need a long-term strategy." "Strategy?" I gave a bitter smile. Andrew wasn't an investment portfolio. That sentence stopped everyone cold. My father's face flushed red. My mother tried to change the topic by asking about the food. Brooklyn kept her eyes glued to her phone. Ava sat beside me, quietly tearing up a piece of bread without eating it. As the guests trickled out, only a few close friends and Andrew's coworkers stayed behind to help clean up. My mother stood up, slipped on her coat, and said quickly, "We should head back before dark. The traffic to the suburbs gets heavy." I nodded and didn't walk them out. Ava clutched my hand tightly and whispered, "Can we stay at Uncle Parker's this week? It's cold here." I bent down to hug her, keeping my voice calm. "We'll go somewhere warmer, somewhere with people who truly care." That evening, while cleaning the kitchen cabinets, I found the tin of cocoa Andrew had saved for the saddest day. I poured hot water, stirred it gently, and realized I was living that very day. Outside the window, a neighbor watered her plants. The streetlight glinted off the wet sidewalk like a quiet reminder that life goes on, whether someone's there or not. In our small kitchen, I placed 2 mugs of cocoa on the table. One for me, one for Andrew. No one drank, but warmth still filled the room. Ava came in and wrapped her arms around my back. Neither of us said a word. We just stood there, in silence, mourning a good man my own family never really knew. On Monday morning, I was sorting through insurance papers in the study when the doorbell rang. Ava had already left for school. The house was quiet, filled with the smell of weak coffee and a hint of lavender oil I'd burned to ease sleepless nights. Through the frosted glass, I saw a tall, familiar figure. My father, in a blue striped dress shirt and neatly pressed khakis. My mother stood beside him, adjusting a strand of hair like she was prepping for a meeting. I opened the door. No greeting. No hug. My mother walked in first, as if the house belonged to her. "Ava's at school, right? Good. We need to talk in private." Her opening line caught in my throat as I swallowed bitter coffee. My father set a paper bag on the table. Waffle cookies from his favorite bakery. A classic setup for their "we care about family" act. "You look tired, Penelope. Don't get too thin. It's not good for Ava." I sat down, arms crossed. "Just say it. Why are you here?" My father pulled a stack of papers from his leather folder and placed them on the oak coffee table. He slid them toward me like a scholarship application. "We've thought this through. With the insurance Andrew left behind, you'll be more than comfortable, so we think it's time you give something back for how we raised you." I looked him straight in the eyes. "You mean money?" My mother spoke up, gentler but no less calculating. "We don't want anything unreasonable, Pen. Just about half. That would ensure us a stable retirement and could help Brooklyn too if she ever needs it." I laughed, dry, sharp. "Andrew's only been gone for 2 weeks. You didn't come to ask how I'm doing, how Ava is eating or sleeping. You came to talk about asset distribution?" My father leaned forward, voice tightening. "Don't be emotional. This is about reality. Yes, you have Ava, but we're aging. Health isn't what it used to be. Everything's expensive nowadays." I leaned back, my jaw locked. "And what about Brooklyn? Does she have a job yet?" "She's working on a new art series. She'll sell it. She just needs time." "And my husband's money is time for her creative process?" My mother's face tensed slightly, but her tone stayed soft. "Andrew seemed like a thoughtful man. I'm sure he'd want to share. Though, too bad he didn't see the heart condition coming, huh?" I slammed my hand on the table, spilling coffee all over the paperwork. "No, you don't get to blame the dead." My father stood, adjusting his collar. "This is why we came in person. We didn't want any misunderstandings. We're family. We should be transparent." "Transparent?" I stepped forward, my voice rising. "Andrew lost his life trying to provide for us. Neither of you came to the hospital. Neither of you held my hand when I broke down. But now you stand here, on the floor he used to mop, asking for half the money he left behind." My father cut in. "Raising a child isn't free. From grade school to college, rides, even the down payment for your first apartment. I sold that apartment to pay the hospital bills after my second miscarriage. Did anyone ask? I didn't wait for an answer. You always have reasons. But you've never been present. I walked to the door and flung it open. Out! My mother started to say something, but my father pulled her back. Penelope, this isn't over. No, it ended the moment you turned my husband's death into a financial spreadsheet. The door slammed shut with a screech of metal. I leaned against it, shaking, not from anger, but because it had been so long since I let myself fight back. Ava wasn't there to witness it, but if she had been, I'd want her to remember. Some things cannot stay silent forever. I cleared the papers from the table, wiped away the coffee stains, and tossed my father's file into the trash. I tore the unopened box of waffle cookies too, crumbs scattering like something inside me had finally snapped. That afternoon, I wrote to Andrew's attorney, Mr. Clifton, asking him to verify the full list of assets and insurance just in case my parents came back with a legal attitude. I added a few lines. If they try to pressure or threaten, I'm ready to disclose all the times they borrowed money from Andrew for real estate investments and never paid him back. I was no longer the daughter who bowed to every demand just to feel loved. If they wanted a fight, I'd choose the battlefield. On Sunday morning, I gently knocked on Ava's door. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. Mist clung to her bedroom window. She sat up, brushed her tangled hair, and slowly nodded when I asked if she was sure about coming along. Did you bring it? I asked, glancing at the manila folder on her desk. She hugged it tightly like she was cradling a secret. I did. I think Dad would want me to. We left the house at 9:30. My parents had arranged a family meeting at their Forest Ridge estate. They hadn't specified the agenda, but I knew well, this was their follow-up effort after being firmly rejected 2 weeks ago. As our car turned onto the gravel road leading to the front gate, Ava reached for my hand. Not out of fear, but as if lending strength to the adult beside her who was running low on it. My mother opened the door herself. She wore an elegant black dress, a pearl necklace, soft pink lipstick, like she was hosting a charity auction. Penelope, Ava, come in. Everyone's waiting. I didn't bother asking who everyone was. Stepping into the spacious living room, I saw Brooklyn seated cross-legged in an armchair, still glued to her phone. My father stood by the fireplace. Next to him were Uncle Dan and Aunt Lisa, relatives I hadn't seen since my wedding over 10 years ago. The room felt staged, like a private tribunal, with me in the center and a makeshift jury surrounding us. Let's keep this conversation civil, my father began. Everyone here is either a witness or has a stake in the matter. I nodded, remained standing. Ava did too, still clutching the folder. We want you to reconsider the financial proposal, he continued. Given all the support this family has provided, tuition, housing, care during your pregnancies, a fair share is justified. How much exactly? I asked, voice steady. Brooklyn finally chimed in. They said 60% to Mom and Dad, 10% to me. I owe almost $12,000 to art school. I said nothing, just looked at Ava. She met my eyes, then stepped forward, pulling the folder from her chest, walking to the center of the room before anyone could stop her. I have something to give Grandma and Grandpa, she said, louder than anyone expected from an 8-year-old. The room's air shifted instantly. All eyes turned to her. Ava opened the folder and pulled out a letter-sized sheet. It wasn't legal paperwork. It was a drawing, complete with charts, colors, and italicized text. At the top, in thick black marker, it read, "Invoice of love for Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Brooklyn." If you want money from my mom and dad, Ava said, eyes locked on my father, then you should answer this invoice first. My mom started to speak, but my father raised his hand, silent command. Ava began reading. Dad died, didn't come to the hospital, $0. Night mom cried in the bathroom, didn't check on her, $0. Morning I cried for dad, didn't hug me, $0. Funeral. Arrived late, Looked at phones, asked about insurance. $0. After the funeral, came to ask for money. $0. Being real loving grandparents, priceless, but not present. She stopped, handed the page to my father. The room went so quiet, even the ticking wall clock echoed. Ava gave a slight bow. Dad used to say, if someone isn't there when you're hurting, they shouldn't show up when you have something. I don't have money, I only have memories. And mine don't include you. Brooklyn slowly put down her phone. Uncle Dan cleared his throat, clearly unsure what to say. My mom blinked, but no tears came. My father stared at the paper, his fists clenched, but he said nothing. I walked over to Ava and placed my hand on her shoulder. We're leaving, I said loud enough for everyone. No one tried to stop us. No apologies, just awkward glances and empty chairs as we left the house that I once grew up in, but never truly belonged to. On the drive home, Ava rested her head against the window, eyes following the trees flying past like flickers of memory left behind. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, my heart both heavy and grateful. You okay? I asked. I don't want to lose anyone else, she murmured. I didn't respond. I just reached for her small hand, the same one that had drawn an invince that silenced an entire room. That moment told me everything. Ava hadn't just offended me. She had drawn her own boundary. Clear, firm, non-negotiable. Andrew's home office still looked exactly as it did the day he left. A freshly pressed shirt hung behind the door. His favorite Montblanc pen rested neatly on an unsigned folder. The air held a stillness, as if the room had paused, just to preserve the trace of him. I opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a silver tin box. The kind Andrew used to store important papers. I wasn't searching for anything specific, but when my hand brushed against a thick envelope labeled with my name in his firm, familiar handwriting, so recognizable I could spot it among thousands, the world blurred around me. I sat down and opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter. The date, 3 months ago. Probably around the time Andrew first mentioned feeling a bit of tightness in his chest after long meetings. Dear Penelope, if you're reading this, then what I kept telling myself was nothing has become the very thing you're now facing alone. I'm sorry. I've arranged everything. There's an updated insurance policy, a retirement account, and a dedicated investment for Ava's future. You and our daughter are the sole beneficiaries. No one else has any claim to what I've left behind. I paused, my heart pounding in my chest as if my body itself was reacting to every word Andrew had written. He had locked everything in my name and Ava's portion secured in a trust. I could only withdraw from it for tuition, medical care, or necessary expenses for her. No one but me could touch it. He had turned down my father twice when he came asking for investment support. Once in the winter, once just after Ava's birthday. Andrew hadn't told me, thinking it would only add more weight to my shoulders. But now, he begged me not to let them take anything more. Ava needed me stronger than ever. He loved me. That was the end of the letter. No signature, not a word more. As if Andrew knew he didn't need to say anything else. I folded the letter, my hands still trembling. Half of it was pain over what he kept from me. The other half was gratitude, that even in letting go, he stayed one step ahead of me. I called our attorney, Franklin Cartwright, Andrew's old college friend and the man who had handled our legal matters over the years. When I read him the letter and asked about the trust for Ava, his voice was calm, though I could hear the quiet empathy. Andrew signed everything at my office in January. The insurance accounts, retirement funds, investment assets were all transferred into a private family trust with you and Ava as beneficiaries. Her portion is untouchable, dispersed only under specific terms. So if my parents try to interfere or sue, they don't have a chance, he replied. Their names are on nothing. And the will was drafted while Andrew was fully lucid and notarized properly. Legally speaking, they have no grounds to touch a single cent. I stayed silent for a moment, then asked, "Did you know about my father asking him for money?" He exhaled softly. "I did. Andrew mentioned it once in a private conversation. He loved you enough to keep that burden to himself." After the call, I sat in the stillness of the room for a long time. The letter rested on my lap, the paper slightly crumpled at the edges. Outside, the wind whistled past the window panes, stirring the maple leaves across the porch. I looked out over the empty yard, where Andrew once taught Ava to kick a soft orange soccer ball. He was gone, but his steps remained in their own way, measured, precise, leaving no opening for anyone to slip through. That evening, I retrieved the estate documents from the safe and placed them alongside the handwritten letter. After carefully scanning everything, I sealed the originals in a large envelope and sent a copy to Franklin for safekeeping. I included a short note. "I've read it all, I understand it all, I won't let you down." When that was done, I walked into the kitchen. Ava was coloring in her dinosaur activity book, the one Andrew had ordered through a subscription box. She looked up when I walked in. "What did Dad say in the letter, Mom?" I sat beside her and placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "Your dad thought of everything, even how to protect the two of us in case something happened." Ava was quiet for a moment, then set her crayon down. "So we're safe now, right?" I nodded. "Yes, now we can breathe." She leaned her head against my arm. In that moment, I didn't feel lacking. I didn't feel afraid. I only felt that even though Andrew was gone, his presence was clearer than anyone who had ever said the word family to me. The week after the family meeting, I started receiving long texts from my mother. Some were laced with passive-aggressive guilt. Others shifted into pitiful sympathy. The final message of each day usually ended with, "After all, we're still family." I didn't respond. My silence clearly made them nervous. 3 days later, Uncle Dan called, asking if I could maybe speak to your parents one more time, then added gently, "People in the family are starting to talk." That line stopped me. I didn't have to ask. I could guess they had begun roping in extended relatives, trying to spin a story that I was selfish, ungrateful, and clinging to my husband's estate. Aunt Linda, my mom's cousin, emailed me saying I should be more generous because our grandparents didn't raise us like this. The next message came from Uncle Jake, which said the opposite. "I don't believe they're out there telling people you're stealing. I watched you fall apart over Andrew. They have no right." The truth was spreading in two directions. One path was distortion, the other, fragments of sincerity from those who had witnessed it all, and I stood in the middle, being pulled without uttering a word. Aunt Barbara, Uncle Ron's wife, unexpectedly invited me to lunch. She was always discreet, never one to meddle. Yet that day, in a small cafe downtown, she placed her hand over mine and said clearly, "You're not crazy. You're doing the right thing. No one has the right to treat your grief like a profit opportunity." I couldn't hold back my tears, not because it hurt, but because for the first time, an adult in my family used the words profit opportunity instead of family support. Around the same time, my cousin Zoe, Brooklyn's daughter, sent me an unexpected message. "Pen, I know what's going on. I'm on your side," I heard Mom say. "Just a little insurance payout would be enough to cover Zoe's tuition." I felt ashamed. I typed and deleted 3 replies before finally sending, "Thank you, you're not alone." My family was breaking itself apart with schemes they thought were clever, but those cracks were letting in light from people who had never spoken up before. The following month, I received a package from my parents, a small gift box labeled Grandma and Grandpa. Inside was a science book called Living Planet, along with a hand-drawn card written neatly, "For Ava, because you love things beyond the universe." I read the book's title again and again. Not a blonde-haired doll, Not a sparkly pink sketchbook like all the times before. For the first time, they had chosen something she actually loved. I didn't call back. But I placed the book on Ava's desk and waited to see her reaction. She picked it up, glanced at me quietly. "Not a bad choice this time," she said casually, then opened to the first page and began to read. 2 weeks later, my mother called. She didn't beat around the bush. Her voice was softer than usual. "I've started therapy. The doctor's name is Carter, twice a week. He said I need to learn how to really listen." I held the phone away for a few seconds, then brought it back to my ear. "I hope you're doing this for yourself, not just to get something back from me." "Maybe a little of both," she said, "but at least I'm trying." Some time later, when Ava had her small science fair at school, I noticed invitations were sent to her grandparents. I asked, "Are you sure about this?" Ava thought for a moment, then said, "If they're coming for me, I'll know. And if they're coming for appearances, I'll know that too." They showed up right on time with a bouquet of sunflowers and a tin of homemade oatmeal cookies. My mother stayed quiet most of the time, but truly listened as Ava explained the Saturn orbit cycle. My father occasionally leaned down to ask, "What does atmospheric rotation mean again, sweetie?" There were no apologies, no mention of money, no digging into the past, but the emptiness didn't feel quite so hollow anymore. I didn't invite them back home, but I didn't block them either. Boundaries remained, only now they knew they existed and couldn't be crossed. Maybe their change came more from isolation than remorse, but to me it was still a signal. Not forgiveness, not acceptance, just an acknowledgement of effort, like someone gently blowing on the ashes. Not to rekindle a fire, but simply to warm themselves a little. I still carry Andrew's letter in my wallet, not because I need a reminder, but because sometimes, in those vague moments of doubt, I need proof that kind people once walked this earth, and they never let the good in us lose direction. Even when those closest to you turn away, there are values that can't be negotiated, not with blood, not with status, not with family roles. Only with choice. Those who stay, stay with heart. Those who leave, leave for gain. Family isn't created by biology, it's formed by the ones brave enough to stand with you when the world turns its back. Under the small porch in the backyard, filled with blooming lavender, Ava was coloring numbers on her whiteboard. "If I save $5 a week, in 6 months I'll have enough to buy books for 10 kids, she explained, eyes shining under the late afternoon sun. I sat beside her, chamomile tea in hand, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. 6 months since Andrew passed. I never thought I'd reach a day where I could simply sit beside my daughter, listening to her dream of kindness without breaking down from emptiness. But we made it here. It wasn't easy, but step by step, she and I had learned to live with that absence, not by filling it, but by accepting it as part of our path. The idea for the Andrew Trust came one quiet evening while sorting through papers. I found his old notebook filled with handwritten lessons he once designed on basic finance for working folks. Every page carried simple, heartfelt messages. No fluff, just genuine care. He always believed that knowledge is the best way to break the poverty cycle. So the Andrew Trust was born. A space where we hosted free community classes on budgeting, understanding credit, and avoiding consumer debt traps. I used a portion of the insurance money to hire instructors and buy books, supplies, and host the lessons at the city library. Each class ended with a cup of hot cocoa, just like Andrew used to make for his students in winter. Marcus, Andrew's younger brother, took a break from his job in Arizona and moved back to Springfield. He bought a small house 2 blocks from us and often stopped by to drive Ava to school, fix flickering light bulbs, or bring over his clumsy but warm homemade apple pies. No one said it out loud, but in Ava's eyes, I saw she'd found a new kind of anchor. Not to replace her father, but to carry forward his spirit with gentle, steady presence. Family? The word had long felt distorted to me. Since childhood, I believed blood is forever, so I endured coldness, manipulation, and control from my parents as if it were normal. But Andrew was different. He once said, "Real family doesn't need shared blood, just a shared heart." I didn't fully understand that until I saw Marcus folding Ava's blanket without being asked, or when Miss Emma, our elderly neighbor, stopped by to sew up Ava's old teddy bear because Andrew wouldn't want her sad over a tear. We no longer have loud Christmas gatherings like before, but we do have quiet Saturday afternoons, baking bread with neighbors from the finance class, video calls between Ava and her new friends from the Smart Savers group. No flashy parties, yet I feel a bond. Something I once thought was a luxury. Ava, at just 8 years old, had a way of stopping me in my tracks with words that felt far too wise for her age. One evening, she brought me a sheet of paper, written in purple crayon. On it, in wobbly letters, she had written, "I miss Dad, but I don't think he'd want me to be sad forever. I'll be kind like him, but strong like Mom." I held her for a long time. Sometimes, it's the children who mend an adult's heart with the simplest threads. I learned to set boundaries. With my parents, it meant not opening the door when they showed up unannounced. With society, it meant declining invitations to commercial talk shows that just wanted a tragic story. With myself, it meant letting myself cry when I was tired without guilt, and saying no if I wasn't ready. I lost part of my heart but not my mind. I was no longer the woman who stayed silent at the family dinner table while being dismissed. The Penelope I am now knows how to walk away, knows what to hold on to and what to let go. Andrew used to teach Ava that being a good person didn't mean always backing down. A good person is someone who stands up, who defends what matters, even if it means going against the crowd. And now, I live by that truth. For my child, for myself, and for the memory of the man I will always love. My family may not be large, but it's warm. It may not be bound by blood, but it's full of heart. It may not be perfect, but it's a place where I get to be fully myself. And that, to me, is worth more than any inheritance Andrew ever left behind. After all the loss and betrayal, Penelope came to understand that family isn't just about blood, but about those who choose to love and stand by us during the hardest times. With Marcus's support and Andrew's spirit, she gradually rebuilt her life for herself and her daughter. Now she's no longer the silent woman in pain, but a strong mother who knows how to set boundaries and live by her values, to protect her child and to honor herself. What do you think about Penelope's choices? Would you have done anything differently in her situation? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and emotional stories about family, loss, and healing.